Welcome inside the Fantasy Sports Locker Room. I'm Chris Meany, Mike Omel, and we got Helen here. We're at Shark Club, as always, downtown Toronto, Yonge and Dundas. We come here every Monday night. We watch some football. They give away a lot of prizes. They got buckets of Bud. I don't know if you can see it.
I'm going to be drinking all night.
Great deals. They got what? You got wings on today?
We got our 39-cent wings, guys.
39
Half
cent
price,
wings.
can't beat it.
Yes, that's right. And steak sandwiches. And you got yourself a little
Got our giveaway
football
over here.
there. So they give away all kinds of prizes here. You can come down here. We have this little questionnaire. You can fill out who gets the first touchdown, who's going to lead at half. The questions, they're all over the place. But if you get that right, they'll give away a jersey. They've been giving away some nice jerseys. I think last week you guys had a Tom Brady jersey.
Mm-hmm.
So you can come down here anytime, check it out. We got Seahawks and the Redskins. So thank you, Helen.
Thank you, guys.
Great environment always on Monday nights.
So
right?
happy to have you guys here, of course.
Yes, she loves it. So
Come by. Helen will greet you at the door, set you up a nice table.
Absolutely. All right, thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
All right, so we're going to talk Week 5 review. We got Mr. John Collins coming in here, and I'll tell you what, he looks pretty sharp.
He does look sharp.
He looks a lot sharper than us.
Popular shirt, eh? I've done well today.
His Eagle sweater is all right, though, I'll tell you that.
Well, it's getting a little chilly. I got to get my fall gear on. You gotta up your fall game is what you got to do. Speaking of that, good segue. We got some teams heating up their game this week.
Yes.
I don't know. I was trying.
It was good. There's obviously a lot of news that's come around today, but we shouldn't start with some injuries. We'll talk about some risers and some fallers. John got some notes down here. Ben Tate was going to trade him in this fantasy Shark Club league that we're at.
Yeah.
That we're in. I was going to trade him to Mike. Now I can't do it with Rashad Jennings. It looks like we'll get into waivers a little bit later, but it looks like Rashad Jennings is going to be out a couple weeks. So I was going to trade Ben Tate to you, but I got to keep him now because I got Jennings.
Yeah.
But we do have some questions.
We do, and let's kick it off with that. We've done actually fairly well. We have a $25 gift card to give away here from Shark Club to our best tweet of the night. And we have 3 to choose from. Let's fire off and answer to all 3 of them, and then we'll determine who our winner is. So from @CodyLewis11, he's asking, better pickup this week, and we're going to get into this, but Brandon Oliver or Ronnie Hillman.
The question is for this week.
So that's right. I think that affects the answer, right?
Yeah.
So if you're asking from a Week 5 perspective, for me, it's very much going to be Brandon Oliver.
Yes.
Yeah.
This guy looked pretty sharp running the ball against the Jets, against one of the top run defenses in the league. Certainly sharp enough to relegate Donald Brown into kind of backup role while they're waiting for everybody to get healthy there. If you're asking long-term, Ryan Matthews is probably targeting the Broncos game. I think that's week 8 as a return. So if you're asking long-term, it might be Hillman. What do we know?
I think the answer to both actually is Brandon Oliver, because Monty Ball is expected to miss maybe 2 weeks. Just 2 weeks now. There's all conflicting reports.
2 to 3 weeks.
3 weeks maybe, but
Was Monty Ball running well enough to keep the job, though?
No.
I ranked Monty Ball number 6 as a running back this year. I was as high on him as anybody. I own him.
Yeah.
I have pretty high coverage on Ball, but he's running under 4 yards per carry, and
1 touchdown.
as good as that offense has been, he might be what's holding that offense back a little bit. So to me, the guy with a better chance of keeping the job is going to be Hillman. Because I think when Ryan Matthews comes back, San Diego hands it over to him. Is that fair?
Yes, I agree with that. But you can't really count on Ryan Matthews. To me, I just don't. Yes, he played 16 games last year.
games,
Sure, but what did he do the year before that? I talked to a Chargers fan today, and he's ecstatic about Oliver. He wants to make some changes on his roster to trade for a guy who has number 1 waiver priority just to get Oliver and make some changes to get him that way. He thinks that he's going to fit into the old school Darren Sproles.
It's a convenient comparison to Darren Sproles.
And he's going to take over that Woodhead situation. He's going to be a passing down back. He's going to get
and that's why Oliver's the remain value all season long, because there's no Danny Woodhead anymore. So even when Matthews comes back,
and what is Donald Brown doing?
And what's he done? So Oliver, even if Donald Brown comes back and Matthews, Oliver will still have that passing down role, and he could really cement himself a heavy workload if he could continue his success there. He was the best back in preseason, 4.6 yards a carry. I like what I saw from the guy.
Yeah.
From Buffalo.
And Ronnie Hellman, of course, hasn't always performed when given the responsibility before. CJ Anderson does lurk there. As far as in the Denver backfield, we may as well answer while we're talking about it. For me, the priority is absolutely Hillman, but knowing that CJ Anderson's going to net a few touches a week as well.
Yeah. And I mean, at some point, Ball's going to come back, and they're going to want him to be that guy.
I hope he's that guy.
And looking forward, I know that the Jets just got run over a little bit. But Denver is going up against the Jets and San Fran, so it's not the best run tee for Hillman going forward in the next couple of weeks. And by that time,
He's going to have scoring chances.
Monte should be back.
So week 5, Brandon Oliver, and week 5, 2 out of 3 are saying, or long term, 2 out of 3 saying Ronnie Hillman.
I'll make a quick point on Hillman. I don't know if we're going to get into it later, but Peyton Manning, they were up 41-20 with 2 minutes left, and he was still throwing.
It's the same. It's
Still throwing. I was like, he's got the records. It's not like Brett Favre is not going to make Brett Favre's TD record. It's only 5 away. What's he going for?
They like to throw the ball. It's the same thing they did last season, and I thought they were chasing records, chasing numbers. They like to throw the ball. He threw for 479 yards yesterday. That's his personal best. They like to throw the football, and they can cover up holes at running back. I still think that they want to see the ground game develop a little bit there. And that's why I think that, Hillman has some interest long term. From last week's winner, actually, so bear this in mind when we give out our card. T12 Fantasy, why no love for Traveris Cadet? Another Darren Sproles reference in our timeline here. Sproles 2.0 in the making. 3 catches and a TD on Sunday. What's the deal with Cadet? I think he had 5 catches, did he not? I think he might have. 6 targets, 5 catches, no carries, and fewer snaps than both Pierre Thomas and Kyrie Robinson, who had a whale of a game. And that's the deal for me with Traveris Cadet. It's also the deal with Mark Ingram coming back. He's coming back. There's just going to be too many carries to split up in that backfield. It's actually why I identified Mark Ingram as one of my callers this week. Already thinking ahead to when he returns, which is hopefully after New Orleans' bye this week. What do you think about Ingram? I know you and I, Chris, were really high on him. What?
I still think he's going to take his job back. And to me, like,
Kyrie Robinson running the ball though.
Sure, Kyrie Robinson running the ball, doing a lot better as the weeks go on. I think maybe it takes some time for Ingram, but they proved that Sean Payton was at least going to Ingram ahead of Kyrie. He was getting the looks in the red zone, and he's getting those goal line targets.
And then Robinson just kind of established himself, which is exactly what I was worried that would happen. Yesterday, that was a power run to win that ball game. He made a number of key plays. It took overtime to do it, but he was the only New Orleans back in 20 carries this season yesterday. So
that's the one scary thing.
I guess I worry. I'm going to hang on to Ingram all my shares. I love what I was seeing from him before he got hurt. And it's a hand injury, so in theory,
he should be fine. Right.
But I don't know. I'm going to have to certainly wait and see before I plug him back into my lineup.
Yeah, because now there's 4 with Cadet there. It's going to be hard for him to get a touch. But that's just another back in the backfield. That'll be when Ingram returns. That'll be 4 of those.
Well,
that'll be hard to
count. To answer Drew's question, I think Cadet might go back to being inactive when Ingram comes back. I couldn't quote the numbers to you, but he didn't play every game of the first 4, to be sure. So I don't think you're going to see a lot of touches for him with Ingram in the lineup. We want to do one more?
Yeah, let's do it.
Who should we be more worried about going forward? Marshall, Johnson, Brandon Marshall, Calvin Johnson, Shady McCoy.
Calvin Johnson. He's the only one of the 3 that has a serious injury right now. I don't know how serious it is, but it's enough for him last week to only have 2 catches and pull himself out of the game, and now they're talking about getting some further tests done. If you're banged up with a foot injury all season long, that can hamper you.
Now, what I like there is that Jim Caldwell's going to hold him out, we think, for a week or 2. Sure, you're going to be without Calvin Johnson, but it kind of saves you the trouble of starting him and not being sure like I did this week in Wilcox.
That's something we never thought we would say. Like, hopefully Calvin Johnson sits this week.
I think they got to rest him a week or 2 and then see what happens.
That's what you want.
And if I'm a Johnson owner, unless I'm convinced he's healthy, he's not in my lineup right now.
I got Odell Beckham Jr.
I wrote it in a post yesterday. If I can deal him, if I can move on from Johnson for another wide receiver 1 type, they're like most of those guys I would do that deal for. Brandon Marshall, I'd do that deal for Brandon Marshall. So there's an answer to your question. I know he's got the ankle issues. He practiced in full this week. Just didn't see a lot of looks, right?
Yeah. I think he's getting. He sounds like he's getting close to more healthy than especially Calvin is. So I would tend to lead with Brandon
Sometimes
Marshall.
you see these wide receivers like Roddy White last year. He's banged up with the foot and tried to play all year and was basically useless. I know, like, I'm comparing Roddy White to these guys, and Roddy White's a little older now, not in his prime anymore. Sometimes those foot injuries, especially with wide receiver.
Absolutely. And of course, we knew that the Lions were a little bit troubled by Johnson's knee in advance of last week. And then the injury he sustained was not to his ankle, but to his knee. You start to worry about all those nicks and bruises over the course of the season. Shady McCoy
Still looked pretty bad, Shady, but he was a little bit better. He was better. He was at least moving the ball forward. He had a couple 10-yard gains.
Yeah.
It's a lot better, and it's a step in the right direction. It's still the offensive line. I did notice, though, a couple times when Shady got hurt, you can kind of see him grimacing a little bit. It looks like maybe he might.
turf toe.
It almost looks like a shot to the head kind of bothers him a little bit. He did take a really good shot to the head against the Redskins where he forced himself out of the game a little bit. I still think it's the offensive line, and Shady's going to get better. I wouldn't really worry about him, but 6-7 points yesterday, and that's
And 180 total yards though. 4 receptions, 4 yards.
And one thing I noticed too, Mike, we were talking about this before we came here. Shady took himself out of that game late yesterday, and he says he took himself out of the game because he felt like he had enough reps, enough touches. He had taken a few touches in a row, and he knew that Sproles was fresh. And they seem to have this kind of and it worked. And when they needed him, it was like 3rd and 6. He ended up getting the first down. Sproles. They seem to have this connection with each other where they're really in it for the team. And it's a weird thing to say, but Shady says he doesn't care about the numbers. Whether at the start of the year he was saying
it's a good season not to care. Start of the season he was going to go for 2Ks.
Exactly.
You don't care anymore.
You don't care anymore, but it's interesting the relationship that they do have.
I just made a note to myself. I didn't check it, but I do want to look at the numbers running behind Lane Johnson yesterday. Because it's at least a little bit coincidental that he comes back into the lineup and that line does a better job of blocking.
Well, the thing is he caught some balls too. The big thing is Kelsey. Kelsey is so athletic. You're not seeing the Eagles do any screen passes, not as much as they're used to doing, like Chip Kelly. You saw Sproles had a monster week against the Colts. A lot of that was Kelsey. That guy was getting down the field, making blocks.
Sproles didn't catch a single ball yesterday.
No.
Well, that's one of my main concerns with Shady is he did look explosive on a couple of plays last week, but he is losing touches to Sproles at the end of the game in the passing down roles.
He had 28 carries though, right?
Still,
28 touches, pardon me, yesterday.
The biggest thing I think with Shady is the Eagles keep going up 21-7, 28-7 before the game. They keep getting defensive touchdowns. The offense is not touching the ball in the first half.
They scored 7 different ways this year, the Eagles.
And that's not
3 different ways yesterday, right? Yeah.
So the punt return touchdowns, the fumble return touchdowns are not going to happen as frequently as they have. So, maybe at the start of the game, Shady's going to actually better run the ball.
Yeah, and that offense really is not gelling like many thought it would be. It's that defense is getting them up in games. And Foles looks still a little shaky. Chip Kelly said today that he's not throwing well off his back foot, but it's fixable. Chip Kelly says it's fixable. Unbelievable. Let's move on. Let's get some risers. Ben Tate, we talked about him in the opener. He's back, and he looked pretty good. Over 100 yards.
He played 50 snaps as well. 22 carries, 123 yards, I want to say. And what I liked about that 123-yard outing is it's not like he had a 60-yard rush, right? He had a bunch of solid runs, finding holes in a zone blocking scheme that really suits him. I liked a lot what we saw from Ben Tate yesterday. Isaiah Crowell and Terrence West each played less than 10 snaps. This is his jam, guys.
If you were going to drop
no curious case of Benjamin Tate anymore, eh?
It ain't so curious. We figured it out.
He's a G.
It was curious before the game, but it's not anymore. If you were to drop either Crowell or West, who would it be?
So there was a big question about that coming into the game, kind of which of those guys would be the guy behind Ben Tate. And then they split the workload this week, so I don't really have an answer. 7 carries for West. He looked much better carrying the ball. But Crowell played more snaps and probably did a little more work as a blocker. I don't know. I keep Terrence West because he's got the draft pedigree and he's run reasonably well.
Yeah, I would say West for sure because as good as Bente looked, one more injury, and then it's Terrence West to show.
Absolutely.
One thing good about Bente, we were worried about Mark Ingram's workload. Bente was hurt. He came back and he owned it. So maybe we shouldn't be worried about Ingram because Bente got hurt and he just rolled the number one back duties.
I know 2 weeks ago I would have told you Ingram for sure, and I would have been like, all you guys that were on Kyrie ahead of Ingram, I laugh in your face, but at the end of the day, it's been Kyrie who's kind of stepped up of late. So it's interesting to see how the Saints are going to go forward.
All right, we're getting blown up. We may as well deal with it on the subject of Kyrie Robinson. We've got a follower here getting offered Cordarrelle Patterson and Kyrie Robinson for Terrence Williams. He says, I need to take this, right?
2 for 1.
And Patterson, I know that he only saw 4 looks this week, and he didn't play a significant number of snaps, maybe 40 out of 81. So he's not being used as he should be, but he's still the more explosive athlete there. I think you absolutely have to take him. Terrence Williams and his 5 touchdowns, he's still dropping the ball. He dropped an easy score yesterday. It's great that Tony Romo's looking his way, but he still has issues with concentration. He's catching 61.5% of his targets this year, about 61.1 as a rookie, and he's letting yards stay on the field, dropping the ball. I take Cordarrelle Patterson and hope that North Turner figures it out. And Kyrie's a nice bonus.
It's actually, in my mind, it's not a slam dunk, just because Kyrie Robinson is going to lose a whole bunch of value when Ingram returns. And Patterson is just been a ghost last 2 weeks. And
he's not getting used. I don't know.
And Terrence Williams he's getting looks. This guy, like you said, he had a huge drop. He could have had a bigger day.
Second straight 2-touchdown game.
He's kind of, I was going to say, he's almost relying on the big play touchdown, which he has been gaining. So if he doesn't get these touchdowns, then you're not looking at great stats, but he's proving that he keeps on finding the end zone. Des Bryant gets double teamed a whole bunch. Yeah. So Terrence Williams' stock is pretty good. And Patterson, I don't know.
You're the Patterson owner, and I know because I'm listening to him every day. Is Patterson is frustrating.
Well, the thing is, Patterson is
the same thing
is an unreal talent.
Patterson, that's the thing. He has so much talent, so much upside. It's just when are those big games going to happen?
And there's not talent blocking him, though. I know they're giving the ball to Jarius right now, but there is not talent standing in his way. There's not really any threats at running back. Say what you want about Asiata. Not really any threats outside. Greg Jennings is a nice possession receiver, nothing more at this stage of his career. Over time, we're not playing for week 6, right? And over time, I think Patterson develops it. I think he gets more rapport with Teddy Bridgewater, who's back in the lineup this coming week. I would take Patterson for Terrence Williams probably right now 1-1, despite his usage. And when you give me Kyrie Robinson on the other side, I think it's a no-brainer. I'm obviously troubled by his reduced snap count, but I think it's coming.
You got to think it's going to come. Like the Vikings need Patterson on offense. They need to get him the ball, and I think it's just a matter of time.
Well, it's all about also like Bridgewater. How's Bridgewater going to be able to work with?
And we've barely seen the two of them together, so that's something to look forward to as a Patterson owner.
I mean, it just makes sense that they're going to try to put the ball in their most explosive players.
A lot of hype on him this year, though. He was going way too early.
That's right.
He was going way too early for my liking in drafts. We'll move on from that. It's a good question. Thanks, Cody.
I think you won that $25.
Keep the questions coming, though. If
Cody Lewis 11 coming back at you
in here in the locker room. Fred Jackson getting a boost up.
Yeah, well, Fred Jackson's getting a boost up over CJ. I had a little conversation on Twitter with Zach Rubel. He's done some stuff for the site before, and we're in a league together as well. Canadian, no.
Yeah,
Is he a Canadian cat, Zach Rubel?
I don't know. I think
I might be mistaken. Either way, give him a follow at Zach ZACHGRUEBL.
There's no question mark at the end.
There is a question mark on that statement, however. But give him a look. We had a quick conversation today. CJ Spiller has half of Fred Jackson's receptions this season.
Fred Jackson's running the ball better, and I'm okay with that. They're going to feed him between the 20s. I'm shocked that they're feeding him in the passing game as well.
He's top 15 in catches, and that's including wide receivers.
And they're using him, and they're going to use him until he falls apart. He played 48 snaps yesterday. CJ Spiller only played 28. Clearly, Doug Marrone and his staff are behind Fred Jackson. They like old guys. They like Kyle Orton better than EJ Manuel.
Kyle Orton looked today as an impressive performance by Mr. Orton.
It was a bad first half.
And you have to expect
they wouldn't have won the game if not for a blown opportunity by former Eagle Alex Henry.
My favorite thing about there's a lot of things that happen over the weekend.
Considering you have to consider everything though. No training camp for Kyle Orton.
Right, he was only there for 5 weeks, and I guess he played decent ball. And he got the ball in Sammy Watkins' hands, and 12 targets, 8 receptions.
That's a positive for Sammy because there was a little bit of a connection there with Manuel and Sammy for a bit. I saw one game where they looked like they were on page, but that's the whole thing, and that's what they're telling Orton. Just get the ball in Sammy's hands and let him go, and that's exactly what they have to do with Anderson.
I like Sammy Watkins' value going. Yeah, that's what they have to do. I like Watkins' value going forward a lot. What I saw from Warren, this guy, he doesn't throw the perfect ball, but it doesn't matter. We saw in that game, he just throws it in Sammy Watkins'
direction of his playmakers.
That one play, he tips the ball and catches it.
The 12 targets for Watkins, I'm quite sure are season high. He had another big game in there somewhere, but I'm quite sure those 12 targets are season high, and that's what you like to see. Anytime you see a change like that, you're not starting Orton in standard leagues. You are paying attention to what he does with a guy like Watkins, and he fed him the ball, and I like it.
I'm a CJ Spiller fan, or owner, and I'm
still one.
Yeah, I know. I'm not happy about it. It sucks. I'm gonna plug him in my lineup.
Yeah, so I don't understand the not using him in the receiving game. He's very good outside the tackles. You think they try to give him the ball in space.
Especially when he needs a new contract at the end of the year, too. It's like, what are they going to do with this guy? Like, it doesn't seem like they have any future plans for him in Buffalo. Jackson did go down with an injury. He left that game with an ankle sprain, they're calling it, but he did say that he expects to play.
He's a 32-year-old running back, and that does become troubling, but as long as he's on the field right now, if I'm a guy that maybe did like a strong handcuff situation or whatever you call that, as long as he's on the field, I'm starting Fred Jackson over Spiller for sure.
Spiller has some big game coming up against the Patriots. I would start CJ Spiller against the Pats. He's had some big games. I'm going to give him one more shot, see what he could do.
I can get behind that.
That's what I said about Brady. I give him one more shot.
Give Brady one more shot. And what happened?
He was good. Let's not write that up like it was it wasn't like a 400-yard passing outing from Brady. He came out sharp.
24 points.
He got the ball in the stomach
of
Stephen Ridley, and
he was fired.
It was a great game. I love watching it, obviously, as a Patriots fan. Nice to see Brady back. Nice to see the fans get behind him a little bit. But that's just like... as bad as we overreacted to how poorly he played in the first 4 weeks, let's not act like last night was him coming out and winging the ball all around the field.
I hope I'm as pumped up about life as Brady was last night. At one point in my life.
The best part of that is another riser for me, though, and it's Rob Gronkowski. Gronk looked good. I said this just last week on our podcast that I'd like to see him look a little more explosive. And he looked like that old receiver last night.
Really good last night.
He was going to touchdown in 4 to 5 games. I know Julius Thomas having a very nice season as well, but Gronk looked like himself. He led the team in targets last night. He made 6 receptions, 100 yards, scored a touchdown. Yes,
he looked
like still have him over Thomas.
Yeah, he's got more yards than Thomas.
Yeah. And they're going to roll those 2 tight ends. Tim Wright only played 19.
That's what I want to talk
He only played 19 snaps last night, so it wasn't like he was on the field the whole game, but when he was out there, they were using both tight ends on seam routes, which is vintage Gronk, and the 2 tight end formation is vintage Patriots. I liked it. It helped pace the offense. For me, it's more good news for Tom Brady than it is great news for Tim Wright. 19 snaps, 5 catches. He caught all the balls thrown to him, and it was awesome. But, he's not an every week starter.
No.
Not yet.
I was excited what I saw from Ridley had the better day than Vereen, but I was excited what I saw from Shane Vereen. Back-to-back, pretty productive days as an RB2 where you're getting about 12, 10 points from Vereen. but frankly, it should be more. Like, what do you have? 9 rushes for
9
90
carries
yards.
for 90 yards, a couple receptions for a handful more.
Yeah, so
Pretty
he
explosive.
looked good.
And what you like as a fantasy owner is they give him the ball on 3rd and 16.
Yeah.
They let him run a draw. Now, last night, he turned it into a first down that worked out very well. He's not going to every time, but he'll probably run that for 12 yards before they even try to stop him. But you really like those chunk bonus yards from Vereen.
Going forward as a Pats fan, Ridley ahead of Vereen, though? Yeah. And it's interesting because it wasn't
he
like
puts
that
the ball on the
before
ground,
season started.
Ridley had a Vereen because they're going to do that power running 2 tight end set. You're going to see like 21 personnel a lot this season, which means you're not going to see Shane Vereen on the field. You see 2 big backs, and they're going to spend some time blocking for a guy that runs the ball well in the middle. It's close, but Ridley over Vereen, yeah.
Moving on, Toby Gerhardt. I see he's fallen down your list. I don't know how far he could fall.
He played 10 snaps yesterday. Drop him.
He's done.
It's done. The problem is there's no immediate fill-in there. Denard Robinson had carries yesterday. Storm Johnson had carries.
Is Denard Robinson listed as an RB yet?
He's a running back. He's both. He's a split hybrid quarterback, wide receiver, running back. He's not Yahoo quarterback. Yeah. He has had the most carries of anybody this season outside of Gerhardt. He's probably the next most used guy. Jordan Todman actually played more snaps than anybody, but he didn't carry the ball. Storm Johnson was in the mix. The point is, Ace Sanders had a few snaps. The point is, don't own a Jacksonville running back. Get rid of Fred Jackson. If there's still a trade on the table, take it.
Keep Fred Jackson.
Keep Fred Jackson. Get rid of Toby Gerhardt. Maybe they should trade for him.
There was a lot of people high on Toby Gerhardt this year.
It just
it was a 300 touch propaganda, right?
I guess you got to be careful what you read and what you listen. The problem is, he maybe could be productive somewhere, but Jacksonville's not the place because they have no O-line whatsoever. They just can't. They can't control the game at all. And so, like, could you see Gerhardt being successful with a productive O-line?
Maybe. Yes, maybe.
Yeah,
but that's not a situation that he finds himself in this year. And in a redraft league, it's a moot point to me.
I mean, they're always so far down anyways, right? They're throwing the ball.
Not against Pittsburgh. That was an awful display. I know
one game I didn't watch yesterday was that game. Yeah, it was brutal. Not one snap of it.
I spent a little time there when I was around the house. Rough day yesterday. I got called away. Le'Veon Bell had 20 touches, sure. He played very few snaps yesterday, and that's what I blame for their poor offensive performance.
That was disappointing, Doug. I was going to get
there was a play when
yards.
Pittsburgh was on the 4.
Total yards. They just didn't use them.
Pittsburgh was on Jacksonville's 4, and they didn't.
LeGarrette Blount was in the game, and then they passed every time.
Yeah.
And then they kicked the field goal.
It's almost like they were just trying to do new things because they knew they were going to win anyways, which is weird because they lost a week before.
I wrote that up, though, in my touches and targets, and it nearly bit them on the ass. I think that's exactly what they did. I think they might have game planned a little bit for next week as opposed to this week and started mixing a few things in. Give Bell a few snaps off because you're going to need him next week. You don't need him against the Jags. And they nearly got beat.
Yeah. Vincent Jackson moving on up.
Yeah,
What about Glennon?
What about Lovie Smith not committing to Mike Glennon? Like, this cat is your quarterback. He beat the Steelers the week before.
I was all excited about Josh McCown this year.
I know you were, but I think you'd say right now, like, let's let Glennon go, right?
Sure.
Lovie Smith's not saying that. Not explicitly saying that.
What? He's not. He's committed to Glennon.
He has not. He won't even commit to him for week 6.
Really?
Yeah, he's tripping. He's tripping. Like,
I thought Glennon's starting week 6.
Yeah, he will, but Lovey won't say so. Anyway, Vincent Jackson on the rise for me.
Had a great game.
He did have a great game. 3 straight games with Glennon where he's seen over 10 targets. And Glennon made him, I think, the second most targeted receiver in the NFL last season. He might have been the most targeted
receiver. That's what I was going to say, because if I remember correctly, they had a connection last year.
It was double digits every game pretty well. He's going to feed the ball to V-Jax. You're going to like seeing it as a Jackson owner. Touchdowns in the first 2 games with Glennon. 144 yards and 8 receptions yesterday. It was nice to finally see Jackson turn those big target loads into receptions. I'm hoping that it means he's over his wrist issue. Let's see how it goes next week, but he's a guy on the rise for me for sure.
Yeah. And I liked what I saw. Like Glennon just threw it up for him, let him go make plays. That's what I like to see with those big playmakers.
Yeah, we were talking about the Ben Tate deal and all this stuff, and how you dropped Andre Williams.
Oh yeah.
And now he's what? A top waiver wire guy. I know he's probably not ahead of
Can't believe
Oliver
it.
and
I'm there like Sunday morning. You know, Andre Williams, he really didn't impress me in his opportunity and the limited touches he got weeks prior. So I'm like, is Rashad Jennings gonna get hurt? Nah, let me take a flyer on somebody else. And then Jennings gets hurt. Are you kidding me?
I would say Oliver for backs. It would probably go Hillman or Oliver, and then Williams.
I would probably.
If you're in a hunch, it's not a bad start
Well,
against Philly on Sunday night.
if you're going just week 6, I'm starting Andre Williams over Ronnie Hillman.
I follow that.
Yeah, because the Giants run the ball. Williams, despite his low carry, I think he averaged 3.1 against.
He was 3.2. I think he had 20 carries for 65 yards. Now, a lot of those carries were good carries. He helped put the game away. The efficiency number wasn't super exciting, but he scored a touchdown, helped put the game away, and looked pretty good on 20 carries yesterday after looking pretty good on 15 carries against a tough defense in Washington.
Yeah.
You know, the only thing about this situation is Rashad Jennings, yeah, he's hurt. He's got the MCL. We're thinking it's 2, maybe 3 weeks for him. He is going to reclaim his starting job. I know there's all kinds of hype right now about Williams, and deservedly so. He's a great waiver ad. But Jennings is the 3rd highest rusher in the NFL this season. Like, this guy's running the ball very well. He's going to get his job back. Now, he's a 30-year-old back with a career-high workload, so you might see him get dinged again. But let's not act, when we say that Williams has earned carries, let's not act that beyond that 2 or 3 week window, it's going to be 20 carries. He's earned 10 carries a game. He'll do well with them.
It's a short-term ad.
Yeah, it's a short-term ad. It's a short-term start. It's a long-term ad, I think. And he's going to have flex utility probably week to week because they like him in and around the goal line as well. Just, a little bit tempered expectations. It's not like he's replacing even Monty Ball right now. He's replacing Rashad Jennings, who's running the ball very well.
Yeah.
Still, I like him better than Brandon Oliver.
Yeah, if you're in dire need of a running back, Williams might be the number 1 pickup for an RB next week to start.
Yeah, I can follow that.
Oh, man. What about Beckham Jr.?
What about
Odell
Ruben
Beckham?
Randall?
I think it hurts
Okay.
Ruben.
Yeah, I think it does.
That's why I'm not too excited about Beckham, because it's just another guy to feed now.
No, see, I'm excited
Hurts
about
everybody.
Beckham long term. Again, we talked a lot about let's add Andre Williams for week 6. Let's avoid Ronnie Hillman for week 6 over Williams. I'm not playing for week 6, guys. I can lose next week and win most of my leagues if I'm lucky, right? Like, it's 1 week. Long-term ad, I liked what I saw from Odell Beckham. I didn't like so much Ruben Randall. Had a great game. He was recommended in Mikey O's nose. I even moved him into one of my lineups after reading your boys' post.
It was an okay performance, but luckily for us,
10 targets,
10 targets,
only 4 receptions, and he's never been a high catch ratio guy. He's never been a guy who's really figured out his route running.
Yeah.
In comes an explosive player in Odell Beckham, who goes 4 out of 5 on his targets yesterday. Plays 40 snaps in the first game he's played all season, and he just
there's a reason they drafted him 11th overall. You're talking about a draft with Sammy
absolutely.
Watkins in it, Benjamin in it, Cooks in it. There were some talented wide receivers in this draft, and he's so explosive. Really
over time, over the rest of the season, do you think he logs wide receiver 2 snaps? Now, for me, they're going to run enough 3 wide sets that I don't really care. But do you think that he logs wide receiver 2 snaps over Ruben Randall?
well, it might be over Victor Cruz, because this guy doesn't
He
look
got
good.
doubled up yesterday,
Yeah.
pretty hard though.
Yeah,
They were on him.
And Donnell, we were all big on him. He didn't get one.
Well, Randall has 3 straight weeks of 10 targets.
He's getting the targets.
I mean,
a lot of targets.
This guy has 37 targets in the last 4 weeks. And one of the biggest things is he's getting targeted in the red zone.
Yeah,
He's the highest target receiver from the Giants offense. So
I think if you're in a keeper dynasty league, you're going to get
Beckham for sure.
right away.
You know, keeper.
No, absolutely. In a long-term league, you like him a lot because the team hasn't really seen a whole lot out of Ruben Randall.
Yeah, and for a guy like Beckham who didn't really do anything in all of the training, he wasn't around. He was hurt, and that was his first game, like you mentioned. Play 40 snaps in his first game, not playing any preseason games.
Without being on the field, hardly with the first string offense.
Exactly.
Like to get in there and be in sync with Eli, to use his body the way he did to make a nice touchdown reception, just shielding the corner. Again, I'm not trying to overreact to 1 week, but I think that if you're looking ahead to week 10, 11, 12, you might like what you see from Odell Beckham a whole lot.
A rookie receiver that I don't know. It's talking with Slayer. I'll mention it quickly. But I like to target is Marquise Lee. I feel like it kind of fits into that Beckham mold. Yes, Marquise Lee's hurt.
I'm a huge fan of his.
But a lot of people gave up on him. But he's coming. He resumed practicing. I think he's resumed running today.
The problem I have is that there's like a lot of average receivers there. Allen Robinson and Allen Hearns had 11 and 10 targets apiece this week. Cecil Shorts will come back at some point and get it back into the mix. You've got Lee.
There's
just a lot of average dudes there, and it's going to be hard.
That's why
I like
have,
his pedigree a lot.
They're average.
So
that's why I
good
like him, because if he could come back, establish a relationship, he could separate himself.
I dig that. I follow that. Let's get him on your bench.
I don't mind having any of the
that.
Jacksonville Jaguar wide receivers. Like I actually don't mind. Like they're not going to put up a ton of points. They're going to get a lot of targets.
They are going to throw the ball all season.
Bortles can find a connection. I know that Marcus Lee against the Eagles in the second half had like 10 or 11 targets. Yeah, unreal. So, and he is talented as well. It's just, you're right. There's a lot of wide receivers there, and there's a lot of.
But they are going to throw the ball a lot. I think context is more important than anything.
Yeah.
And if there's an offense that can support 2 or 3 usable guys, it's actually probably an offense on the team that's getting thumped, right? Let's let them heave the ball in the air again. 21 targets between Hearns and Robinson yesterday.
Yeah. Robinson, 11 points, PPR league.
In the PPR, he had a nice day. And Hearns had 10 and 4 receptions, which is the problem with a big play receiver. This is why you're not going to find me starting Allen Hearns, even though the upside is interesting.
There's Pasangi?
Yeah, so my only point
More snaps?
Yeah, and didn't
he
didn't pan out like we thought, right? He had less carries than Sean Green in a game where I don't even know what Tennessee was doing to manage that game. Locker gets hurt, you bring in Whitehurst, and he's slinging the ball around.
Did you see that?
I did.
They went for it on 4th and inches when they were up by, 6 instead of punting the ball away.
So, I don't even know. The clock management is terrible. The game management is terrible. Why you're not seeing Sankey get more carries or even Sean Green get more carries in a game where Charlie Whitehurst is in. He had a couple of nice throws. He hit Hunter. I love seeing Justin Hunter in the end zone. I don't understand it. My point is, hold on Sankey's value. He's still going to take over that backfield. If we're talking about upside in that game, though, it's this cat right here. Travis Benjamin
from the U.
He hadn't played a lot of snaps coming into this game. He only has 11 targets on the season, so I'm not really getting excited. But speaking of a team that has a lot of average talent at wide receiver, why can't a guy that just caught 2 touchdowns from Brian Hoyer, showed himself to be clutch, more of that toe-tapping end of the game reception than the deep ball that he was just left open because of Hoyer's, sidesteppy move.
Man, Tony Manziel's not going to play all year.
Hell no. But
The Browns have a future quarterback, and that's Hoyer.
And they might have a future wide receiver in Hawkins. I would start him over Miles Austin if I were Storage Wars Jared or Mike Pettin right now. I'll tell you that.
Benjamin?
Hawkins?
Benjamin or CFL or
Hawkins had 8 targets yesterday.
That's
Let's
a lot
not
of
write him
targets,
off. I would start him over Miles Austin.
Benjamin, number 1 on Cleveland, you'd say? Receiving?
In PPR league, you like Andrew Hawkins.
I still like
Standard league, I'm thinking about adding Benjamin. That's all I'm saying. Over Austin, absolutely. And Hawkins gets work.
I'll tell you what. Next week, I know the Bengals just got crushed by the Patriots, but the Bengals are a strong defense, especially at home. That defense is ferocious at home. I haven't seen enough of the Cam Newton this season. I'm benching Cam Newton next week on the road in Cincy for Brian Hoyer, going at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh Steelers defense you know, they have a lot of injuries. I think Brian
They
Hoyer.
didn't allow a touchdown yesterday.
I know that's true, but I love what I see from Brian Hoyer. He is swinging it.
He is slinging the ball. He's not afraid to. And Cleveland's been finding themselves in a few holes early in games, right? So he's having to throw the ball. Speaking of guys doing that, I like it. I like that. Although, you know what, Cam has looked pretty good this season. He's not running the ball at all. That really hurts his fantasy potential, but he's a much sharper passer than he was last year.
Yeah,
showed that yesterday. Love seeing him hook up with Greg Olsen. Speaking of quarterbacks, though, that are going to have to throw the ball, Austin Davis acquitted himself pretty well yesterday. He is not in our Eston McLaren's waiver piece. You're going to see this on the site tomorrow morning. Guys that we didn't talk about, he's got George Wynn. If Jarek McKinnon's still available, go get him.
Brian Quick.
Brian Quick, 9 targets, 2 touchdowns yesterday.
I picked him up and I played him over a couple of guys. I was super happy with his performance. Plus, even before that, he was getting a lot of targets to begin with in the first couple of weeks. He was getting a lot of targets, double digit, I think, in the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, and no, he's averaging 7.25 this year, I think, targets. And Davis looks good enough to get the ball to those guys.
Heading into week 5, I think he was first in completion percentage, and I know he's not anymore, but he still had whatever.
And he didn't throw any picks yesterday. There were
No,
fumbles. He didn't throw any picks.
And fun fact about Austin Davis, broke all Brett Favre's passing records at seldom miss.
That's a fun fact.
Oh, baby.
After his football
Austin
days,
Davis.
though, he's going to need help shaving. You guys see that Brett Favre commercial? It's terrible. No. Terrible. We missed flavor ads that Eston missed. We actually, Joseph Randall was the only thing I wanted to note here. This is way down your priority list. DeMarco Murray had 37 touches yesterday, and nobody else played. It was ridiculous. Jerry Jones says, give more guys the ball. Nobody saw the field. But the guy that's seeing the field a little bit more and seeing carries than Lance Dudmar is Joe Randall. And if they keep running the ball 40 times a game with the best running back in the league, he's going to get hurt, guys. And you want Joe Randall as a lotto ticket right now.
I'm getting nervous
I'm
of Murray.
surprised that you Murray's going to get hurt.
I picked up
I love him, though.
I picked up Randall in a league prior to Sunday just because I'm getting nervous about DeMarco. And then, like you said, 31 rushing attempts, 37 touches.
Just own him.
And that O-line is really good. That O-line is solid.
it's
And now that
amazing.
Randall could, be productive.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I can't remember if you just mentioned that. Randall will have some productive days going forward with Murray in the lineup.
Maybe if they shift the
One or
carries
two.
or a little more. The problem is they're so reliant on DeMarco Murray for their offense right now, and he is fulfilling everything they need. So
Myers not too far. Mark.
If you get, if you give me a bottom 5,
I know. I was talking to the waiter here, Ben Moss, Afro guy. I don't know.
I haven't seen the South Park episode.
He told me it was great. I haven't seen it. Or the first episode.
if you give me a 4 rush defense where I think Cowboys are going to lead the game, I might start Randall. I might get some fourth quarter love.
Yeah, I take. You got to be in a deep league to do that.
Yeah,
but
deep,
roster. Put him on your roster. You were gonna say, sorry.
I was just going to say, we were talking about Tennessee and Cleveland. I think Mettenberger is going to be the starting guy there. And I just think that might boost up Hunter's value a little bit, too. A lot of people are so disappointed in Hunter, but we saw he couldn't come in the game because he wasn't dressed. But when he came in the game 2 weeks ago, his very first pass was to Justin Hunter, who didn't have a catch all game. Yeah. I just think it's something to keep an eye on.
Absolutely, and Hunter had a nice day yesterday.
Yeah, he did.
He caught more than 50% of his targets for the first time all season. He's still up in the air. I think he might miss some time,
Well, you made a great point. I'm not sure you're going to bring it up, but, we mentioned Brian Quick. Some of these wide receiver 2s against a team like the Eagles, you should start these wide receiver 2 type players.
Especially if I know that there are some concerns about Philly's offense, and I know that they're kind of justified in a lot of ways. At least they're a little different. They're winning games differently this year than they did last. That said, if you're going to see a team that's going to build a lead, let's start our wide receiver 2 against them as opposed to somebody who's going to be running the ball in the second half.
Well, I started him over Deshaun Jackson. I mean, Jackson's a little banged up. I don't know. It's not going to come back to bite me because Jackson's probably not going to get 20 points tonight. But don't be afraid to bench a big name because he's not doing anything where he's banged up. Or like you said, Mike, a wide receiver 2 with a good matchup.
Just think context. That's the only thing I ask is think context. I'm going to say 3 things really fast. Can you let me do that?
Yeah.
Eston in his waiver piece, he has Antone Smith. I dig adding him, but
He only had 11 snaps. He was on the field
he
for
played
11
11 snaps yesterday, 4 touches, and that's not going to happen every week, that touchdown. Seems like it's going to, but there's 4 backs that got touches yesterday. Unless you're in a best ball league, go for it. You cannot reliably start Antone Smith as good as he is at breaking tackles, right?
Right. I agree.
He's only on the radar in like 14-team leagues.
And very like bye week or injury situations. If you want to roll the dice, roll the dice.
Is he owned in our 16-team Canadian football league?
I'm sure he's owned there. I actually own him in NFL.com. I started him last week. Tell him guys not to start him. I started him last week. He scored another touchdown.
Big play.
NFL.com says.
Tonight, Monday night. What are you watching?
I'm watching that Russell Wilson jersey that they have up here, and they're going to give that away tonight. They're going to give away a jersey every night.
I'm really curious to see Alfred Morris. He's had a great season. You know, Seattle, one of the most feared defense in the league, but on the road, they're a different team.
Absolutely.
We saw teams have success. You know, the San Diego Chargers rushed the ball great against Seattle. I want to see Alfred Morris have a day.
I want to see Alf go, and on the other side, I want to see how much they use Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah.
He's a guy that they let run the ball all the time at home. Last road game against San Diego, he barely saw the field.
And that run defense is not bad in Washington.
Absolutely not. So I'm interested to see what he can do against them and if he gets work. And if I'm a Lynch owner and he's not getting work and I happen to have some nice running backs, I'm remembering what he does in a road game. If it doesn't work out tonight, the next time they take the field, same sort of thing. I want to see what Russell Wilson does.
I expect him to have a day against that week.
But he throws a little less. He throws a little less on the road.
I know he does, but
He
I
throws a
feel
little
like
more. Pardon me. Yes.
I feel like he's going to have a day against that weak ass.
Deep sleeper, Luke Wilson. This guy is 6'5", runs a 4.49. Starting tight end for Seattle. Is that Gruden?
It was going to be a Gruden. He failed on it.
I didn't really do the Gruden.
Give me a Gruden on Riley Cooper and then let's sign off.
6'4".
6'4".
Okay. Let me tell you about Riley Cooper. This guy, he's 6'4", and don't underestimate his bromance with Nick Foles. Nick Foles looks to Riley Cooper in the end zone. These two are probably going to hook up for 5 more touchdowns in the next 5 weeks. They love each other in the red zone.
And thank you, Mr. Gruden. I want to say just that. Love each other in the red zone. 5 red zone targets this year, most on the team. Jeremy Macklin had a touchdown, another 10-target day yesterday. But Cooper gets looked at in the end zone because he's 6'4", and Macklin's absolutely, however tall he is. Jordan Matthews, a little guy. Josh Huff back in the lineup, little guy. Riley Cooper's going to keep getting those looks in the end zone. He made good on it yesterday. He's starting to get healthy. Keep him around your radar and think about him as a wide receiver 3 next week.
Yeah, I put him in as a flex, and I think that's what we talked about in the first couple of weeks. We were wondering, where's Cooper? Matthews is ahead of Cooper. What's going on? But again, in the first couple of weeks, Cooper was not getting targeted only in the red zone. And it's a good point. He's a big body, and he looks for him. And that was a perfect example. That touchdown, they've already done that a few times.
He looks, and then they finally connected last night.
All right. That wraps her up. Eston's waiver piece is coming on the website tomorrow, so make sure you check it out. Mike Omeline, John Collins, Chris Meany. We'll see you again next week.
Yes.